What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Blank Online here today to chat with you more about some Call of Duty Warzone. And what I'm going to do here is go through my top 5 things that I think would improve Warzone to make it an overall better game and an overall better experience. But before you guys hear my list, I want to hear your guys' list in the comments down below. So give me your 5 things that you believe will help to improve Warzone, make it a better game. Now, I'm not going to talk about things like servers and skill-based matchmaking because they're obvious ones. I'm going to talk about sort of like nitty-gritty things and things that are kind of specific to the way the game plays, at least for me, and that sort of thing. So the first thing I have here on my list is rotating drop weapons. Then this relates to things you find on the floor in buildings or in chests and that sort of thing, or in buses and all that sort of crap. What I like what Infinity Ward did with Season 3 is that they swapped out the Warzone drop weapons that were in Season 2 and replaced it with things that would find in the Battle Pass for Season 3 and other weapons and etc. That I thought was really, really cool because it spiced up the game and made it feel a bit different than it usually would when it was back in Season 2. It just made it a more fresh experience, so I really, really liked that. Dropping into my first game of Season 3 and realizing all the weapons were different was really cool. Figuring out which weapons are worth picking up, figuring out which weapons aren't worth picking up, like the LMGs, and all that sort of stuff. But I really, really like that, and I hope that Infinity Ward continues to that because it will make the game feel a lot more fresh. Like, can you imagine if we launched into Season 3 and it was exactly the same weapons as Season 2 and you're really comfortable with everything already and it's kind of, you're feeling like it's the same experience over and over again? You really wouldn't want that. I remember when they brought back trios and the same Season 2 drop weapons were in trios. I didn't want to play trios, man, because I was playing with the same crap again. Your same common M13, your same P90 blue, like all of that was just the same, and I didn't feel like playing with it because it just felt old and I didn't like it. So I'm glad that they rotated the weapons, and I hope they do it more in the future. The next point I have here is about vehicles, more in terms of vehicle damage, vehicle health, and vehicle availability. So vehicle damage has to do in terms of the amount of damage players can do to vehicles, and that I guess coincides with vehicle health as well. One of the most annoying things here in Warzone is getting run over by a truck, a SUV, an ATV, a quad bike, like just getting run over in general after you've played so long looting, killing people, and then for it all to end with just some dude running you over in a car. That is one of the most frustrating things here in Warzone. So if Infinity Ward were to either nerf the health that vehicles have or buff the amount of damage people can do to vehicles, that would make it a whole lot better, as well as vehicle availability as well. There's a truck at every single fire station on the map. At every single POI in the map, there's at least a handful of vehicles located around that certain POI. So I think what Infinity Ward needs to do is, I guess, look at rebalancing weapons. Yes, you can counter them, and everyone's running a C4 or an RPG now just to counter vehicles. But I think that if we're gonna sort of have a more balanced game, I think that what we need to do is to give players more ability to kind of have a bit more freedom with the way they choose their classes, not having to be sort of strangled into using an RPG or a C4. Maybe you want to use a Claymore, maybe you want to use a Molotov, or maybe you want to use your Kimbo 357 as your secondary weapon. Whereas if you're kind of looking at it smart, you'd run an RPG and a C4 just to be able to counter those vehicles. But yeah, I think that vehicles need to be looked at. I think that vehicles are something that are a good addition to the game, but an addition that is in the right hands very overpowered. People are getting very, very good at driving in this game, and people are getting very, very good at knowing how to run people over, because the splash damage, especially on these vehicles as well, is really, really big. You could get run over literally if you're behind a tree, if you're behind some sort of blockade on the roads. Like, these vehicles run over anything. So I think that we need to look at that as well, being a bit more realistic and saying if a vehicle runs into a tree, it doesn't go through the tree. If a vehicle runs into a rock, it doesn't go through the rock. So I think that we need to look at that as well, and I guess sort of rebalance vehicles as a whole. The next thing here I have on my list is vaulting weapons. So This is a concept that Fortnite has seen time and time again, where the developers introduce a weapon, and then if that weapon is not balanced or doesn't really fit with the current demographic of the game, they take it out and vault it, maybe to be seen at a later date, maybe not. This is something that I think we need to be seeing more in Warzone, especially when it comes to those early drop weapons. It really doesn't matter once you get loadout drops and that sort of thing, but I think that one thing that shouldn't be a drop weapon is an RPG, or maybe even make it a legendary weapon. I think that launchers as a whole in this game shouldn't be a weapon that you can easily access on the floor. RPGs, PILAs, jokers, all that sort of stuff needs to be like legendary items or epic items, or just items that are rare to get, so that once you drop into the map, you're not constantly getting spammed with RPGs, because they're found in a lot of places, and RPGs only are common. So I think that what we need, an uncommon. So I think what we need to do is sort of look to vault the either vault the RPG so that it can only be accessed through loadout drops, or maybe vault launchers altogether and only have them accessible through loadout drops. And I know what you may be thinking. I just literally just talked about how RPGs and C4s help counterbalance vehicles, but then if you think about it in a scenario where we reduce the health that vehicles have so that your normal guns will do a lot more damage to them, and then we vote the RPG and other launchers to only be accessible through loadout drop, I think that will be to me at least, a bit of a more fair system, because it gives people that sort of ability to either, okay, we're either going to run an RPG or we're not going to run an RPG. One of the easiest things to do here in this game is for your whole squad to run RPG and use that to clear houses, to just bombard houses with RPGs. And while yes, launcher ammo is hard to get by, there's a little thing called a munitions box that you can buy, and it refills your RPG ammo to max. So I think that what needs to happen is we need to rebalance the looking of different weapons. I think that things like weapons that, for example, don't necessarily work here is the Car 98K. At least the common and uncommon variants of the Car 98K, I literally never find myself using it, and I find myself just leaving it on the floor. Things like the common and uncommon Odin as well, I find myself never picking those up because they're not really worth it. And things like the common and uncommon M4 is something that I do like in this game, and I think that it should stay. So there's a lot of weapons that you can kind of look and see. Maybe if we take those out and put some more in and then keep rotating it that way, it would keep the game a lot more fresh and a lot more balanced as well. So I think that's something that we should look at here as well. The fourth thing I have here is supply station price balancing, and this is mainly in terms of self-revive as well as loadout drop markers. One of the things that Infinity Ward keeps updating is the price of the loadout drop. At the moment, in this current point in time in the game, it's $10,000. What I think needs to happen is either Infinity Ward needs to have price brackets for each of the game modes. So for example, solos will have a different price to trios and have a different price to quads, because the more players you have in the squad, the easier it is to attain a certain amount of balance to buy a loadout drop. So I think that there needs to be some sort of price bracket, rather than, I think what Infinity Ward is looking to do is to increase the drop amounts for money in the game modes that have less players. And I think that while that will work, I guess you then run into the idea of people having a crazy amount of money so that they can just constantly like spam UAVs or gas masks or self-revive kits and that sort of stuff, and then in that way you sort of unbalance things yet again just by increasing the amount of money that drops on the floor. So I think that the most balanced thing and the best thing that we should do here is price brackets. So again, that idea of different game modes, with depending on how many players are in a squad, will have different amounts like to pay for the things in the shop. One of the things I do think is a bit underpriced is the self-revive kit. While I use it a ton, and while it's a feature and it's something that can be so clutch, especially in endgame scenarios, it's $4,500. A UAV which costs $4,000 lasts 30 seconds, whereas a self-revive kit that can potentially clutch the game for you and potentially be the reason you win a game is $4,500, and a loadout drop marker is $10,000. So I think that loadout drop and self-revive are the most important, and UAV I'd say, are the most important things in that supply station. So I think that what we need to look at again is price brackets and self-revive getting maybe a price boost as well, but I'm not too sure on what Infinity Ward wants to do there. That's just my opinions, and that's just to be honest, that's just what I think that will sort of balance the game, just to sort of make the price brackets happen and improve the price of self-res, because you can literally buy a self-res after one sort of loot, like after you loot one sort of POI, or do one sort of scavenger contract or something like, or recon contract even. Like, they're not hard to get at all. So I think that with a game mechanic that can be so clutch, I think we need to look at rebalancing the pricing of that. The next thing I have here is loadout drop availability. If Infinity Ward is going to increase the price of loadout drops continuously, why give us so many loadout drops throughout the game? I think it's either at the end of the first circle, or when the first circle is collapsing, or near the start of the second circle is when your first supply drop loadout drop marker will come in. And then throughout the end of the game, I think off the top of my head, it's around the 4th or 5th circle will be another supply loadout drop. And if they're going to keep increasing the prices of them, why would players wait to get a loadout drop? Why would players grind to $10,000 just to buy it and then have another loadout drop come in at a later, like 30 seconds or another zone from when they originally bought their first loadout drop marker? At least to me, it doesn't make sense. So I think we should keep the first one. But then the ones later on in the zone, I don't know if they're really necessary, because at that point people would have had money, and if they do need a loadout drop marker, they would just buy it then. I think that it devalues the $10,000 price tag that Infinity Ward put on it by giving us one as soon as the first circle collapses in. So I think that the first circle collapsing in one's good, but I think that the ones later on after that, so for example the ones at around the 4th, 5th circle, need to be scrapped, because at that point, again, as I said, people will have money by then, people will be able to do all that stuff then. And even at that point, if you make it to that point, you may have gone gulag and you would have come back and you would loot it again. I think that even at that point, one of the most important things to buy then would be UAV and self-revive rather than a loadout drop marker, because there's loot on the floor, there's loot you can get from other players. Like, there's more important things strategically to buy at that point. I think that the availability of loadout drops throughout the game needs to be lessened to make the value of the loadout drop and make it worth $10,000. And that's my opinions, at least. So those are my top 5 things that I would see improving Warzone. Let me know what you guys think down below. As I said at the start of the video, what's your 5 things that you would like to see changed or introduced in order to make Warzone a better overall experience? I'm going to go through the top 5 things I don't like about Warzone as well, so we keep this thing balanced, as I've been saying a lot of times throughout this video. But yeah, click subscribe if you're new here so you don't miss out on my next video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.
No, come on, man.
Pull up in the gold, I'm leading. But them other man need feeding. I don't wanna go Bombay. Them I don't know what I do when I go from Beeling. Leading the pack in black and I'm on with the bat. Snapping with the phone and dab. Boss up a man with the duster. Put him in the drip and sip blockbuster. Win, 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 that's the only MO. Ring, 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 I reply with NO. Call me Leno, had it hot.